Hi, a couple of years ago I started getting into D&D. As my passion for D&D grew, so did my collection of minis, and like many others out there, I now have boxes of shame, legions of unpainted minis. Now this is my underdog story. This is me painting every single one of my miniatures. Hi guys and gals out there, today I'm gonna paint a Bone Devil from Wizkids Deep Cuts. The first thing I do is, of course, to clean up the mold lines. Now, be very careful with this, especially if you're using an X-Acto knife like I am. I am a seasoned professional and also Finnish, which means that knives is a part of our heritage and culture. So I know what I'm doing is what I'm trying to say. Just be careful. Now, one thing that bothered me was the scorpion tail. It sort of got easily entangled with the wings. I dunked the model in some hot water and then used just ice water afterwards just to reshape it and make it sort of have a clear sort of path, so I didn't have to deal with any annoyingly close body parts when painting. Now, the next thing I wanted to do was to attach this to the base, and I tend to use Gorilla Super Glue. I find that this one gets the job done fairly quickly, and also I like brushing on the actual glue instead of sort of pressing it out of a bottle. This way I have more control over exactly how much I need. So with that, I just sort of try to place it in the center and give it a little wiggle just to get that super glue working. And then I actually used a clamp, which I found was good, because then I can put it down and, go do something else. Awesome job. So, on to priming. I primed this with Army Painter's skeleton bone. First, because most of the model is called the Bone Devil after all. But I started out with Abomination Gore from Army Painter just to sort of try to block in the fleshy bits. Now you can see I have the backside of the actual sort of Bone Devil package. They usually have an image of what the model should look like when it's done, and I actually have it close at hand because it was a little bit confusing, to be honest, what was flesh and not at points. But I sort of am trying with a larger brush just to sort of block in the rough areas where I know that there's fleshy bits on this Bone Devil. Now, this is sort of what it looks like at the moment, which is, it's a decent paint job so far. But what I wanted to do next, once that had dried, was to use the same color, but this time a color skeleton bone, and just sort of go over the lines and making sure that they're a little bit more neater. So like I said, I'm using a much more detailed brush here, just to sort of make sure that all of my lines are, somewhat neat, and that what should be bone is bone and what should be flesh is flesh. And at this point you can actually see I missed some of his what do you call it, collarbone or something, chest bone. But that's what it looks like once it's dried up. So the first thing I do, first off, if you notice, I have a new camera angle. I've actually, during the filming of this, I got my new rig, so now I will have an overhead camera view instead of that tripod view, which hopefully will get better. Now, the painting, yes. If you have anything that is bone colored, I tend to like to have a wash on top of that, and the wash I'm using is one from Citadel called Seraphim Sepia, and it's super good. And I used it actually when I did the Dracolich a couple of weeks back. If you remember, I'll link it in the description. I find that this gives the bone a very sort of not dirty look as much as sort of aged look. It looks like it's been through, it looks weathered, I guess is what I'm saying, but not sort of dirty per se. And I really like how these two colors sort of bring out a nice sort of skeleton-y detail. And I'm not being very neat here. I'm putting it somewhere on the flesh and so on, because having a little bit more colors in the flesh, that's fine. So I'm not being neat here. I'm just slobbing it on. And this is what we have so far. And honestly, at this point, it's starting to look already good, in my book at least. Tabletop ready. Yeah, a little bit of spin. You can see it sort of, the wash sinks into all of those, the right, cracks and crevices. Now, I used some Terra Earth game color. I wanted some sort of, obviously earth tone for the actual ground he's standing on. So I just picked, honestly, the first thing that was, in my proximity, and this happened to be it. I'm just slobbing it on, thinning out my paints. Remember that, thin out your paint so you don't obscure any details. Now, I think this is the point where I'm sort of realizing that, no, it looks okay, but it's a little bit too similar to the actual bone color, but I'm gonna get back to that. Now, while the base is drying, I figured I want to draw in or paint in some dots in the sockets of his eyes. So I'm literally just putting in a small dot. Why I'm doing that, I'll get back to soon. And then back to the ground texture. I'm using Agrax Earth's shade from Citadel, just to sort of get a little bit more darkness and depth into the base. You can see actually if you how the eyes turned out also. They now have a small white dot in them. But while this is drying, and particularly the eyes, I want those to be super dry for the next step. I'm just taking, this opportunity to paint the actual base with black. Like you've seen in the other videos I've done, I tend to like having a very clean black base. I tend to either go complicated and get inspired, or, just keep it simple, keep it neat, keep it black. So this is what we have for now, and I'm liking the results so far. Now at this point, I knew I was going to use some ink to tint the eyes. I had green ink, I had violet ink, I had red ink, and I had yellow ink. But I wasn't sure which one would give me the most pop in his eyes and glow, so I did a quick test. I did some white dots on black background on the plastic sort of, and just tried them out. And of these, I have to say that the sort of glow effect wasn't that apparent with the violet. The red was okay, the green was so I settled for the yellow one, to be honest, in the end. That felt like the best choice. So at this point, once the eyes have dried completely, I'm just going to take some of that yellow ink from Vallejo and put some down on my wet palette and literally just drop it in there. Don't paint it, just drop it in there. And you can see here, once the camera, you can see that it looks a little bit hazy now. But once that dries, and this is I think 15 minutes later, you can start to see that white dot, but a yellow sort of shimmer around it, which gives it that nice sort of glowy finish. Now, I coated everything using just a sort of polyurethane varnish, and then after that had dried, I put some Reichland flesh tone on the flesh actually. And here we go. Here I've gotten one of those spinny things. Apparently it's called a display case display something, just to sort of show you guys and gals out there. I'm liking this, so onto the glamour shots. So here it is from behind. You can see all of those skeleton details. I did go over and also sort of highlight some of the skeleton details just to make them pop a little bit more. I'm happy with this. It's tabletop ready, for me at least, so. Alright guys and gals, that's everything for this week. Tell me about your situation. Do you have boxes of shame? Please tell me in the comments, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And I hope you have an awesome day. Toodaloo.